heads I win, tails I don't lose much, and how you come up with bets in that sort of line of thinking.
Well, I mean, I think that the heads I win, tails I don't lose much comes up. Well, I mean, I think you ideally want that in every investment. You know, downside protection is, I think, is fundamental. I think it's core to any investment. In some cases, like IPSCO, it's very obvious that you have downside protection. I also felt when we were making the Fiat Chrysler bet that we had a lot of downside protection because at the time they pretty much got all of Chrysler for free, which included Jeep and Ram and everything. I read the UAW contract, the new UAW contract in 2009 when they were in bankruptcy, and that's better than Shakespeare. You know, the funny thing is that every 5 years, the UAW, I'll just digress for a second, but every 5 years, the UAW, renegotiates contracts with the big three. And, it's a kind of it's a battle. They threaten to strike. We just had the longest strike in 40 years, almost 50 years at GM. In 2009, the Auto Task Force, which was part of the Treasury Department in DC, they went to Detroit, like 3 of them for a day, to kind of look at the different plants and meet some of the leaders. And they had a meeting with the UAW leadership, and that meeting started at 4 o'clock, and their plane was going to leave at 5 o'clock. So they told the UAW leadership that, listen, we've got a new contract for you, and here's the new contract, and this is where you sign this contract. And the leadership at UAW said, you don't understand how things work in Detroit. You give us this contract, we will review it. It might take a few weeks, and then we'll get back to you. And it's highly unlikely large portions of it will be acceptable to us. And that's how we work things. So the Steve Ratner, who was part of the task force, told the union leadership, he said, look, my plane leaves at 5 o'clock. If by 4:45 I don't have a signed contract, then tomorrow I shut down all the lights in the city of Detroit. I don't particularly care whether we ever make another car or not. So that contract was signed in 20 minutes. And that's the contract I read. And it was beautiful. So the only time when that contract was done that way. So Detroit went from being one of the worst places on the planet to build a car to, just after that contract got signed, to being the best place on the planet to build a car. It became more competitive. In fact, the Koreans have told me that they'd rather manufacture in Detroit than in Busan in Korea. It's a lot cheaper. So anyway, the thing is that Fiat actually had a bunch of competitive advantages at that time that were not visible, like the redone UAW contracts and so on. So I mean, I think the thing is that we really want to focus on minimizing the downside. I think that when we look at businesses, and that is one of the things that becomes hard for me, when I look at a business like Amazon, which is such an incredible business with such incredible leadership and management, just incredible moats around their business, the downside is where I stumble. I mean, when you look at great brands, the value is intangible. It's not like IPSCO. You can look at the balance sheet, or you can look at contracts, and you can look at guaranteed cash flows coming in. It's a lot harder. So there you have to have a leap of faith. on the value of the brands and the moat and such. So that's what makes it harder. But the thing about investing is that even if so, someone like Warren Buffett has a Swiss Army knife kind of approach to investing. He's had so much experience in so many different scenarios and asset classes and such that he can make it happen so that Berkshire continues to build value in a variety of different structures. So, Occidental is buying something, they do a $10 billion financing, 8% coupon with a bunch of warrants. I mean, it's like what they did in 2009. So those are tremendous deals. And so, but if you're an investor, for most of us, when we start out, and even through most of our lives, we may never develop a Swiss Army knife. We may only have 1 or 2 or 3 tricks in our bag. And even if you have just one trick in your bag, that is more than enough to become extremely wealthy. So you do not need, I always give the example of Charlie Munger's friend, John Arriaga, who's a billionaire, and he's a real estate developer. And all his real estate ventures have been within 5 miles of the Stanford campus. I mean, he's never gone outside real estate. He's not gone outside of Northern California, not even outside of just the core area around Stanford. And so his circle of competence is just extremely tiny, just probably the tiniest circle you can think of. But that did not stop him from becoming one of the wealthiest people on the planet. So you don't need to, so probably 99.999% of great investments are outside the competence of John Arriaga. He's, if anything is not in real estate, he's going to take a pass. If anything is not even just in that particular geography of real estate, he's going to take a pass. And even in that geography, he's been very disciplined, where when the market got extremely bearish and vacancies went high, he went and bought a whole bunch of stuff. And when things were cresting, that's when he would, at very low cap rates, basically get rid of a lot of stuff and so on. And he just played that game just perfectly. So I think that the key is, stay within your circle of competence. Do not have envy for your neighbor, your idiot neighbor who's making money hands over fists without having any brains. Envy is really bad, but having envy of that type is very detrimental to your financial health. And be patient. So, just sticking to a circle of competence and being very patient, 2 of the strongest skills that you can bring to bear. You don't even need a high IQ. You can give away IQ points and get more patience genes and get more stick to circle of competence genes. And that's the holy grail.